Okay, we're live. All right, good evening, good Yom Tiv. Thank you all for joining. A very special for bringing Shir Zoom. I want to begin by thanking all the partner schools that have partnered with us to bring this Shir and for bringing to you. This is part of an ongoing series of webinars that the Menachem Foundation is partnering with Moistis around the country and around the world to bring parents important and rich content. I also want to thank, the format of this year is a little different than on a usual webinar. When we reached out to Rabbi Braun a few months ago about talking about this idea about instilling your Shemayim in our families, he mentioned that it would be nice if he can have a little bit of a crowd to speak live and have the rest on Zoom. And I want to thank Mrs. Feldman for graciously hosting us to have a small live share that we can have the feeling of a real Farbrengen brought to you to the comfort of your homes. The share is sponsored by somebody who asked for a bracha, for to have nachas, chesed nachas from the children, and may Hashem bench them, and all of us with brachas ad b'dai, especially in raising children with Yiras Shemayim. Our speaker tonight, Rabbi Braun, needs no introduction. The Mar D'Asra, Chaver Bezdin of Crown Heights. We were Zeicha this summer at the Kinnis HaMechanches. Rabbi Braun spoke about this topic to Mechanches, and it was so popular that we felt that we needed to do a rerun. So here we are, without further ado, Rabbi Braun. The format will be a share for bringing, and at the end there'll be a few minutes of questions and answers. If you have any questions, you can mention that in the chat. We'll try to get to your question. Unfortunately, we don't have so much time for question and answers, but we'll try to get to a few, at least 3 or 4. Thank you so very much. Without further ado, Rabbi Braun.
It's my pleasure to be here tonight, and as was mentioned, tonight is also Yudalat Kislev. It's a Yom Tov. It's a day of celebration. Rabbi Shnei mentioned earlier the request that this should not be just a Zoom, but also live, and I think that ties in directly with the theme of instilling Yiras Shemayim. Instilling Yiras Shemayim cannot happen if it's not live. It has to be passionate and it has to be real. And if it's a Zoom, I'm using the term Zoom figuratively right now, I'm not actually talking about Zoom. If the whole Yiras Shemayim is just a Zoom and it's not something that it's not experiential, then it's very hard to impart that message. In preparing for tonight's webinar, Shir, podcast, Farbrengen, and I've heard a lot of terms already. So the first thing today we do AI. So I looked up on AI, what do they have to say about instilling Yiras Shemayim in our children? And it's obvious that there was not much there. Yiras Shemayim doesn't come from AI. So my next second bet was, let me Google it. I'm sure I could find something interesting. So what did I come up with? There's a webinar on instilling Yiras Shemayim with your children from Menachem Education Foundation tonight. And there were a lot of results like that. So I came here to find out what it's all about. If I may say, this is perhaps the most important webinar that you'll ever hear in your life. The theme, I'm not talking about the content, the theme. Mitzvah Shem, hopefully the content as well. There's nothing more important for us than imparting Yiras Shemayim to our children. There's a lot of values that we need to impart in our children. Chinuch is so all-inclusive, but the first and foremost is the Yiras Shemayim. And let me start with we said it's a Chassidish Farbrengen, with a short story. The Rashag, the Rebbe's brother-in-law, found out in the year Tafshin Yutes, he found out that there was a chassid by the name of Reb Zalman Gurari, that this particular chassid has a very strong business network happening in Brazil. He really tied connections with a lot of gvirim, with a lot of rich, wealthy, local Brazilian people. So the Rashag asked Reb Zalman Gurari, they're actually the relatives, he asked the Rebbe's brother-in-law, who was running at the time the Moistis of Tomchei Tmimim, it was on his shoulders to finance the Tomchei Tmimim Moistis, next time you go to Brazil, can I come along with you on your business trip and I could somehow schlep in bringing some money? Naturally, Reb Zalman Gurari was not so excited about the idea about introducing a fundraiser, a donor, to his business contacts. But the Rashag kept on asking him again and again and again. So eventually he said, okay, no problem, but I'm making with you, he made a very dearing condition. If you'll be able to accomplish, your brother-in-law is the Rebbe. When we come back to Brazil, I could go into Yechidus and I could ask for a bracha for whatever I want, no problem. I'll go to Brazil, I'll bring all the Gvirim along. So the Rashag said, let me ask my brother-in-law, let me ask the Rebbe. The Rebbe agreed. It was a very unusual, rare type of condition. They went to Brazil to use Reb Zalman Garari's terms, "Mod gemacht mishigene Geld." We really made crazy amounts of money. The Rashag showed every pictures of the yeshiva, he showed students learning, and he got a lot of money. A few days after they came back to New York, the Rashag has already now money to keep the yeshiva going for another good few months. So typically, Reb Zalman Garari asked the Rashag, no, I kept my deal. Shmedel, this is how you called him. I kept my part of the deal, now it's your turn. Arrange the Yechidus. So he arranged a Yechidus, and as he walked into Yechidus, the Rebbe told him with a smile on his face, the Rebbe said, Was willst du beten? Ad chatzi hamalchus. Ask, what do you want? So Reb Zalman became very emotional, and he said he had a boat full of schreira. He himself was on the boat, he took the schreira from one country to another country, and at some stage, when he wasn't on the boat at the time, the whole boat drowned with all its content, and he lost a crazy amount of money. He asked the Rebbe, can we find this boat? Reb Zalman finished speaking, the Rebbe became very serious, and the Rebbe said, I'll read it from the text, you have an opportunity, you can ask for whatever you want, you need to have brains to know what to ask. And the Rebbe said, du darfst beten, you have to ask that your children, your descendants should be Chassidim Yiras Shemayim. They should grow up in the way that our Rebbeim taught us. You came to a Yechidus with a deal that you can ask for what you want, and you're asking about the business deal that went sour, or didn't go sour, we lost so much money. So Reb Zalman was a clever Jew, and he immediately chapsich, and he said, oh, Rebbe, that's what I'm asking for. So the Rebbe said, das wirst du haben. You will have that. The most important thing, if you have an opportunity, is let's have children at Yiras Shemayim. So I'm going to disappoint you tonight on some level because there's no short tricks. There's no tricks or shortcuts for having our kids become Yiras Shemayim. I think we all knew that before we came here. But there are some tricks, I have to say. They don't do all of it. Many, many years ago, I noticed, personal anecdote, I noticed in the Dvar Malchus has been going on, I don't know, already from some 20 years out. I noticed on the page of the Dvar, I think it was in the Dvar Malchus that I noticed it, they printed a letter, and I think it's there every week, and for some reason I never noticed it, a letter of the Frierdiker Rebbe, where the Frierdiker Rebbe writes, is a school from ancient Chassidim, that if you want your kids should not chas v'shalom go l'tarbus ra. Tarbus ra means go chas v'shalom, what we call today OTD, off the path, say their kapitel to them. And it hit me like a bolt. We do everything that our kids should be on the straight and on the narrow. And here, I have right in front of me, I have Kanai Nahara 15 children, Bli Ayin Hara. Okay, so it's going to be another 25 minutes a day. It's worth every minute. Started saying for the Eniklach too. My son told me at your age you could start saying for Eniklach, it's fine. So that's a sgula. Obviously the sgula comes, everybody looks for sgulas today, because that's the easy thing, but it comes together with the whole context, with the whole package. And the most important thing, obviously, is nothing but you want kids to have Yiras Shemayim, have Yiras Shemayim. If you have Yiras Shemayim, they will have Yiras Shemayim. It's as simple as that. Being a role model for Yiras Shemayim, it sounds like a cliche, a phrase that we heard so many times. It's the truth. It's nothing but the truth. Yiras Shemayim comes from the environment. If there will be Yiras Shemayim in the immediate environment, in the home, it naturally goes over to the kids. It might have its roadblocks, it might have its ups and downs, it might have its struggles, but eventually it makes a reishim. The Rebbe told someone once in Yechidus, Dein shlichus is, told it to a number of people, Kemoifes hayisi l'rabim. Your mission is, be an example for everybody around you. The Gemara says, Kol mi sheyesh ba Yiras Shemayim devarav nishmoim. If a person has Yiras Shemayim, people listen to you. Often if we take an account and say, why are my kids not listening to me? Why are my students not listening to me? Why are my teachers, if you're a principal, not listening to me? Why are people in the Kehillah not listening to me if you're a Rav? Something's wrong in the person giving the message. Mi sheyesh ba Yiras Shemayim devarav nishmoim. If a person has Yiras Shemayim, then people listen to them. So if a person, never mind the fact that the Dugma Chaya aspect, that you're a role model, but if you have Yiras Shemayim, your messages carry weight. People listen to what you say. I was once by a public speaking lecture. I ran a smicha program for Bachrim, and I had someone speaking to them. They were given a few tips and seminars for shlichus, whatever it is, and marriage and shalom bayis and all that kind of stuff. In those days, that was considered daring, and I was considered, I don't know what's for doing such terrible things, talking to Bachrim about shalom bayis. But be that as it may, I had some talking to them about public speaking. So this individual came, and he spoke to the Bachrim, and he asked them, give me things that you think are techniques for public speaking. You know, the right way of teaching is not frontal, but everybody being part of it. So somebody says hand motions, facial contact, eye contact, tone of voice. They were giving all these ideas. Okay, they all finished with their ideas. And then this shliach says, okay, now think of a public speaker that you really look up to the most, that made the biggest impression upon you. Typical Bachrim, they all, of course, said, who's the public speaker that made the biggest impact upon them? The Rebbe. So he says, now tell me, which of the techniques of public speaking that you mentioned did the Rebbe use? Did he make hand motions? No. Did he use his voice? No. Pretty. Certainly the years that these Bachrim remember, monotone voice, eye contact. Sometimes the Rebbe just looked down the whole time. So the Rebbe broke every single rule in the public speaking book. So why did he make such an impact? Valed geret emes. Because he spoke the truth, because he meant what he said. When somebody means what he says, it makes the strongest impact. People see that right away. If parents are an example for what they talk about, kids pick up on that. Talk about tefillah. A dugma chaya of davening. I don't mean davening shachas ben chamayim. That's not what I'm talking about. That also. We can't be like the parent that tells the kids in shul, don't talk during davening, and the parent continues to talk to the adult next to them. And the kids pick up on that talking during davening is a thing that parents are supposed to tell kids about. It's a concept that you're supposed to tell your kids about. Like there's a sign on the wall that says, Asr al-Darba b'shas tefillah, and in the entire shul there's one that keeps that rule, the wall. It's a sign for the wall. It's a rule that's meant to be, in schools we have rules that are meant to be broken. Everybody knows that there's the invisible curriculum, the hidden curriculum, the rules that are meant to be kept, and the rules, there's shoes, there's uniform, there's sweaters, and everybody knows shoes in this school, you come with the wrong shoes, but some other rule that you break, no one's going to say anything, because it's meant to be broken, right? There's a whole set of rules that you sign on, and for some reason they only pick on 5 of them. And the other one they pick less. So kids know that talking during davening is not a real thing. It's something that we just talk about. So I'm not talking about that part. I'm talking about davening, real davening. Something happened. Let's daven. We lost something. Let's say a kapitel Tehillim. Or even thanking Hashem. Let's talk about davening. Thanking Hashem for the good things that He does for us. We start off our day the very first thing in the morning. We train our children. No, we don't train our children. We train ourselves. And naturally our children pick up. The first thing is Moida Nil Fanecha. For what? You won the lottery? No. Sheikh Zarta bi Nishmasi. But everybody wakes up in the morning. Yeah, we thank Hashem for Pekeh Chivrim, for Matar Asurim, for Zekiv Kfufim, for being able to see that we have blessings all day long. Kids, first of all, to be in a family that's loaded with blessings, instead of everything going wrong, it's not, the tea spilled, and then I couldn't get my shoelaces, and then I couldn't find my this, and my husband came home, and I told him he has to babysit, and I have to go to this. Everything is negative, right? It's a very negative environment. It's a house full of blessings. Hakaras hatoiv to people, and hakaras hatoiv to Hashem. Yeah, of course things go wrong throughout the day, but how do we react to that? When I'm talking about dugma chaya of davening, I don't only mean davening in the technical sense, but a connection to Hashem. Hashem's presence is part of the house. We constantly feel Hashem's awareness. The reason that we got this in the mail was because Hashem gave us such a brach, and He gave us this envelope, which, even though it was only a $10 check. And not like, I thought He was going to give me 180. Like, what's going on over here? An attitude of blessing. An optimistic attitude. There's a letter of the Friedrich Rebbe. The Friedrich Rebbe talks about shalom bayis, and he says the edeler relationship. He does also refer in English for edel, so refined relationship of husband and wife. Besides for being a mitzvah of the Eibishter, it's the best chinuch for the children. A chinuch from midas tovis. The Friedrich Rebbe continues. He's writing to a woman. And he says, even if you find some fault in your husband's behavior, the correct way is talk nicely, positive attitude. B'shum oifen, don't use harsh expression. That's your best way of success, both with your husband and with your kids. Kids pick up from their environment. The way we speak is the way they will speak. The way we act is the way they will act. A strong impact on kids is emes. They have a mind associated with justice. There's something in the brain that for some people is not that developed. But in kids' minds, it's the most developed, right and wrong. And they don't understand anything in the middle, by the way. I'm talking about little kids for sure. There's black and white, and there's nothing in the middle. And when they see injustice, it bothers them. They're not being chutzpahdik. They hate injustice. Their whole body recoils against that. And they hate falsehood. To tell a kid to go do a dreidel and a spitzel and do this and do, hey, I'll tell you how you can do it. Or never mind, tell the kid, do those kind of things yourself. What impact does that have on a child? If we're talking about living an example of Yiddishkeit, the Yiras Shemayim, it comes across in emes and honesty. The pasuk says, "Emor el kohanim v'amarta aleim." Hashem told Moshe to tell the kohanim that they're not allowed to defile themselves to bodies. Tumas kohanim have to be careful with the laws of purity. They can't go to Levaya, they have to be far away, etc., etc. On the words "Emor v'amarta," Rashi says, "Emor, say, v'amarta, and say." That's a double expression. So Rashi says that come to teach you that part of the mitzvah of Tumas Kohanim is lahazri gedolim alaktanim, that the adults have to warn the children, young Kohanim, also have a problem of Tumah. That's why there's a whole issue about, I don't know if anybody knows the halachas associated with it, but if the wife of a Kohen is giving birth, she's giving birth in a hospital, there might be bodies there, what they do, they leave as soon as possible, the husband doesn't come visit, they go to an non-Jewish, or whatever. I'm not talking about the halachic aspect. But there's a rule that even children, Tumas Kohanim. How do we know this from? Because it says, Emor v'amarta, double expression. What's the connection with the double? Where do you see in that double expression that is for adults and for children? All it says is, say to the Kohanim and say to them. Just says twice, say to them. There's one saying that we talk about something and it's for us. There's another time when we talk about something and it means the kids. When Moshe Rabbeinu is imparting the message to the Kohanim, first you say to them and they think, oh yeah, it's a Kohanim rule. But then you say it again, there's a deeper type of saying that this is an atmosphere, it's an environment, it's how you live. It's not only for adults, it's for children, it's for everyone. It's a different form of saying. It's not just emor, it's omarta. It's something that you breathe, that you live. And when we talk about modeling, we're not only modeling behaviors, we're modeling in was is da the geschmack, in was likme. What do you enjoy? What do you appreciate? Tonight's Yudalit Kislev. Do our children know it's not Yudalit Kislev? Well, if the Tati comes home and it's Yudalit Kislev, it's not a game. It's for real. He's so excited. It's the Rebbe's wedding. Let's put a white tablecloth on the table. Whatever it is, white tablecloth, mezainis, farbringen, with mashka, depending on the age of the children, adult children, with mashka, without mashka, sweets, candies, ice cream, no sweets, whatever, vegetables, whatever. That's details. Set up the table, Shabbos dig, sit and eat in the other room because Yudalit Kislev. And it's not something that you're doing because I went to a podcast and I was told you're supposed to model a behavior. It's something because you really breathe Yudalit Kislev. You came and they see, why is Tati different today? What happened with Tati today? Something happened at work? You don't know, you don't see it. Yudalit Kislev, it's obvious. You can see it's his whole environment. Parents go and they bring in shul, men, and they come home. And what do the kids see? Farbringen means that you're tired. Farbringen means that you're jittery. Farbringen means that you have no patience for the children anymore. Farbringen means you fall asleep right away. Farbringen means you come home late. There's a lot of associations with Farbringens. And a lot of them could be negative. Or Farbringen means he's on such a high. He's talking about the parsha with such enthusiasm. He's sharing what happened by the Farbringen. I wish I could also go to a Farbringen. He's sharing a new story of the Rebbe, a new vart, a new der hair, a new feeling. The Rebbe spoke so much about Hakel. What's Hakel about? Events of Yiras Shemayim. Having an event which we're going to reenact Maimed Har Sinai. By Har Sinai, we were told that the purpose of Har Sinai is, the pasuk says, the Torah was given Har Sinai with thunder and lightning, with 3D shtick, and the purpose was Leman Tia Yiras Hashem Al Panechem. In order we should have Yiras Shemayim. Yiras Shemayim is not just the message; it's how it's given over. It's with the shturim. We're going to Mount Torah right now. This is not a football game. It's not just it's not an outing. It's not even a wedding of a relative. We're going to a Hakel event. It's Har Sinai. The Rebbe wanted we should do Hakel events. Reenact Har Sinai. There's so many ways we can reenact Har Sinai in our home to provide Yiras Shemayim in a way of Gilu Bir'ada. Yiras Shemayim means fear, but Ra'ada means trembling. Gilu, happiness. Give them experiences of Yiras Shemayim, of Abrengen, joining Achnas Sefer Torah. Let's dance. Come, let's dance. It's Yudalat Kislev. I've been in a home that every night of Chodesh Adar, they put on music, and the kids dance 5 minutes before bedtime. I'm not sure if it's the smartest idea before bedtime to dance. We'll leave that to the sleep specialists, because now they're full on energy. But I'm talking about the concept. Dance! It's enjoyable. One of the things, sometimes we miss the message that the Rebbe gave us. The Rebbe spoke about making children's room into a room of Tzivus Hashem, and having a room of Torah, Tefillah, Tzedakah. It's not just an instruction that you keep on the book. There is a room in our home, which is the Beis HaMikdash. Can you imagine? Kids have their own Beis HaMikdash. They don't only have a chumash with their name in it and a tzedakah pushka, and sometimes we neglect and a tzedakah pushka is there and it's not there. It's experiential. Yiddishkeit is experiential. We have Har Sinai events and we have Beis HaMikdash locations in the home. And the child has his Beis HaMikdash location. Talk about it that way. Use the right language. Go to your room. I told you to go to your room. How many times do I have to tell you to go to your room? Or, Yankala, let's go into the Beis HaMikdash. This is your personal Beis HaMikdash. It's not just a sicha, it's real. Everybody knows about the impact of a Shabbos table. A Shabbos table, a beautiful table with parents that are there, the parents that are not distracted, with delicious food, with nigunim, with stories. What kind of environment that makes in a home? A home which is so full of kedusha, of oir, in an environment that we're so saturated with cheshach, to have that beam of light of a Shabbos table does so much. There's one of the things that the Rebbe spoke about. It's not very well known. I just mentioned in the shir. We're going through in the Power Hour shir Shabbos, so we're up to Suda Shabbos. So I actually mentioned it in passing, but it fits in very nicely over here. I would love you to hear this Fabrengen of the Rebbe. Talk about experiential. There's a Fabrengen, the Rebbe spoke about it a number of times. It's officially in the list of takanas of the Rebbe in the beginning of Hayom Yom, that the Rebbe instituted that Friday night the family should sit together. It's one of the Rebbe's rules. Listen to the Fabrengen if you have a moment. If your Yiddish is not that great, get someone who's good at Yiddish. Listen to the part how the Rebbe speaks Matzah Yud Shvat. It's a Matzah Shabbos. The Rebbe spoke in a way that you can actually hear a recording of it. Tavshin Lamed Dalet, where the Rebbe says that even in families that are keeping Torah mitzvahs properly, there's something missing in the family unit. Der Geida and der Geidar, and each one is going in a different direction. They're all maybe davening and learning, but not doing it as a family, as a unit. And then the Rebbe said, certainly, it could even be on a worse level. It's not as if the father is learning, he's a businessman, and the kid is learning in yeshiva, and therefore they're not connected. It's more than that, or which mitzvah they're doing better. There's a generation that says, we are a different generation, we have different behaviors, we have different solutions, different approaches. Often there's this distance, there's the ki yis'alcha bincha machar. Ki yis'alcha bincha, your son, in the Haggadah, we have your son will ask you machar. The Rebbe explained there's a generation called the machar generation. Yesh machar shelo achar zman. There's a tomorrow. We're not the Yitzias Mitzrayim. Yeah, you were before Gimel Tammuz. All that kind of stuff. We're different. We're already part of the American dream. And the Rebbe mentioned in that same sikha that we saw this past generation, so many people were lost, both in terms of Gashmis and in terms of Ruchnis, because they were so lost, they were confused, they didn't know what they were looking for, because they allowed them to go on their own. This concept of independence creeped in, and the father and mother were busy, doing good things, and the kid had getapt avant. Tapped avant, I don't know how you say that in English. Touching around in the darkness, trying to feel where they are. The churban that happened in family life because they were lacking as a family unit. The way to resolve this problem is to get together as a family. Pick a time Friday night. The mother, the Rebbe says, is the most important of this thing, because it's not going to help if anybody else is part of this, because the mother is going to bring in the varmkeit and the hartzikkeit, warmth, with the way a mother knows how to do things. Make them as a family. How many stories do we have? Now, I'm talking in very general terms. There are kids that are younger and the kids that are older. There are kids that are already in, and the kids that are partially already 1 foot out. There's so many different types. We're talking about general ideas. How many stories do we know of the kid that came back home because of the cholent? Nothing else, just the cholent, the mommy's cholent. The knedlich in the soup. Because nobody else makes the soup with the kind of knedlich that my mommy makes. They went so far, but that cholent or knedel or whatever other special things, enhancing the Shabbos table is important, yes. Ice cream. Today's day and age, it means ice cream, vanilla, and chocolate, and strawberry, and all of that for Shabbos. Tati and Mommy will do anything for Shabbos. Fancy dishes, because it's Shabbos. Not because they're Gashmiziga people. It's so obvious they're doing it because it's Shabbos. It creates such a sense of stability, such an atmosphere of kedusha. Everybody knows the story of the person that was going to marry a shiksa, and he learned as a little kid. He learned from his teacher how you're supposed to tie the right shoe first, and then first put on the right shoe, and then do the left shoe, then tie the left shoe first. So he did it out of habit. That's what he learned in school. And then when he was about to go to the church and marry the shiksa, right, and his shoe was untied, and he started doing it, and he remembered, why am I doing this weird thing? I'm a Yid. Sometimes we don't know how those small things make a difference. Every small thing, setting up negel vaser by the bed. The kids see, it's a habit, it's habitual. There's a system. We set up negel vaser by the bed. We do this every night. We set up negel vaser by the bed. Those kids that don't. What can we do? But we're trying, this is what we model, this is what we do. And they see how purity is a very important thing. There's a story of Rabbi in Eibschitz that as a little kid, he was taking a walk with his father. And his father was showing him different sights. They passed by a jail, and he asked his father, what's this? He says, this is a house where they keep people that they don't want them roaming around the streets because they're not safe people. So they lock them up in here. He says, why do you have to have a whole building? Just take away their negavasser in the morning. Take away their negavasser, and they can't get out of bed. The tmimus of a kid, it's impossible to go out of bed if there's no negavasser. It's like you can't do things otherwise. Part of the problem, of course, is that the Rebbe once spoke about this too, that chinuch requires two opposites. We want to train our children that everything should become habitual. There's no such thing of eating without a bracha, because he's so used to it. And we want to make sure that nothing is habitual and everything is real and sincere. It's not just rote. So part of educating that way is for us being like that. We can't eat without a bracha. We can't get up from the table without benching, and yet every benching is a meaningful benching. So if we are like that, of course we impact. Now, we spoke a lot about Dugma Chaya. Of course, nothing happens without Siyata D'Shmaya. 99% of imparting a Yiddish Chassidish chinuch to our children is Siyata D'Shmaya. 1% is our efforts. There's a lot to say for our 1%, but the 99% is important. Davening for our kids. What do mothers do by lichbenchen? Even, again, that's something to model also. Kids seeing their mothers crying. I saw my mother crying by lichbenchen. And I know exactly why she was crying, because of me. Well, maybe my brothers also, and sisters. I know why she was crying. She was crying to have Yiddish, emes Yiddish. And there's some mothers say tchina, some people don't have the meaning of saying tchina, so who cares? You have a particular set prayer that you say it in your own words. That's semantics, that's question of meaning, halacha. I'm not here in the role of a rav. We're talking about, it's a real thing. Lichbenchen is a time to daven. But it's not only lichbenchen. Whenever you have a free moment, what else should he daven for? Go to the oil. Write a zettel. What are you writing in your zettel? Like back to the story of Zalman Gerari. The most important thing is to daven for. The most important thing is Amunachas, Emes Yiddish Chasidish Anachas. The Rebbe once spoke about the fact that in our generation, there's so many children that drifted off. Why is it? We talk about this a lot. You know, the Rebbe actually spoke about this. And he said there's two primary reasons why in our generation we see so many kids that have drifted off the path. And the Rebbe spoke, it boils down to two things, to kashrus and to taras hamishpacha. The Rebbe said he thought for a very long time about this. And because of kashrus, not being enough careful with kashrus, that develops the kid's lack of sensitivity in one way. The Rebbe spoke the difference between the two things. And the lack of being careful in taras hamishpacha has a different type of impact. So there's practical things that Rebbe spoke about, strengthening kashrus and taras hamishpacha. And as much as we keep it, we could always keep it more, affects our kids. A very simple practical thing that Rebbe often talks about, also many letters. If you see there's a problem with a child, don't talk to the child directly about it. Yarba Levrim. Try via the friends, try via the environment. Simple educational techniques. But going back to what we said before, the warmth and kedusha of the home. A child obviously goes to a place that will give him excitement, but he returns to the place that gives him warmth. I want you to remember that sentence, that phrase. Children go to the place that gives them excitement, but they always will return to the place that gives them warmth. The home is the only place that can really provide them with really authentic warmth, because any warmth that you get out there is excitement, it's not warmth. Children that return from missionary cults, anybody working in Yad La'achim will tell you this. There was just a story 2 days ago. And they guided the parents not to be on top of the case of their kids, just be positive, just be warm, continue that relationship, and eventually the child, a girl in this case, came back from the cult, and they said, that's a waste of time. They're coming home because there's a place to keep them. And they say that this is what their experience shows them, that the more they shower them with warmth and love in home, they come back to the home. There's a big difference between reminding and nagging. Teenagers know the difference. We sometimes don't. Sometimes we feel like we're reminding and we're really nagging. And really, sometimes they want us to, this is how they're getting our attention. So they're keeping on acting out because they know they're going to keep on getting, we're going to keep on providing them with attention. Questions like this: does the child know about this? If they know about it, why are you telling them again? They know about it already. Leave them. The younger children, maybe they don't know about it yet. But older, they know about your skirt. Chani, your skirt. You become associated with nuisance. You become associated with nagging. They know the skirt rule. You said the rule. Make sure you say it once and say it very clear. And don't leave ifs and buts about it. And now what? What do you want now? I know the rule, and I'm breaking the rules. That's what I'm trying to do. So what are you going to do now? You just want to get into a conflict? So sometimes they don't know. A child, somebody walks in, their zipper is open. If we care about them, we tell them, by the way, your zipper is open. You didn't realize. That's coming from a menschliche place. One of my sister-in-laws tells me a story. She was walking with both of her grandmothers in the street. Two Chassidische women in Crown Heights. And there was someone walking opposite them, which had jeans with a slit or something. And one of my grandmothers, her grandmothers, said, "Boy," turned to the other one. She says, "Charachmanis, give a cook sitzerissen dorten." Have a look, and she has a rip there. What does she know about styles? She genuinely thought. Sometimes the child doesn't know, literally doesn't know, and he'll be grateful that we told him. But sometimes they very, very well know. Let me give you an example. They might not know the importance of growing a beard. As much as we think they picked it up through the environment, it's lost between the cracks. So one time it's a good idea, not when they're struggling with the issue, before that, to tell them there's a Tshuvas Tzemach Tzedek and why a beard is so important and the effect that it has. There's things that they're supposed to be told. They're supposed to be told the truth. There's a letter of the Frierdiker Rebbe where he writes that kids will one day turn to their parents and tell them, "Why didn't you tell me the truth? Why didn't you rebuke me? Why didn't you tell me the truth? And the truth is Torah." The question is, did we tell them or did we not tell them? If we know that we told them, leave it at that. Having a camera in the kid's bedroom to know exactly what the kid is doing what is, first of all, invasion of privacy. Number one. Number two, if only that child finds out about it. Number three, you can't really follow children all the time. So, and I'm not suggesting that anybody here does that. But there is a camera that we could tell them that we have. V'hine Hashem nitzav olav. Raising children with the awareness. You know the teacher that covered the camera? When he walked out, there was a test. And there's cameras in the room, and the teachers walk out because there's a camera. And the teacher said, "No, I'm covering the camera because I don't have to look at the camera to see if you're cheating in the test." V'hine Hashem nitzav olav. The Eibishter is all over. What kind of message, what amazing messages I give to children. Confidence that the teacher has in them, and an awareness of the presence of Hashem. If we are criticizing, and we do need to tell them off for something, they should realize it's coming with Ava. And they realize that for every one criticism, like everybody knows, it's supposed to be 10 compliments. It's just so hard to find those compliments, isn't it? That's a question of attitude. They say that from the company, one of the Frigidaire company, they once decided they want to go to a new market, and they decided to go all the way down to some primitive tribe in Africa, and they sent two salespeople to go bring the Frigidaire, that type of fridge, to Africa. They came back. One wrote back a message and wrote, these primitive people never saw an electric appliance in their life. Waste of time, can't work over here. And the second one wrote back and he said, please immediately send an urgent message. There's not even one fridge over here. There's such a potential over here for sales. So it's a question of attitude and perspective. So you could see compliments and you could see criticisms. How are you looking at it? And the way we look at it is the way they look at things. Are we providing this optimistic way of looking? The younger the children are, the more they need boundaries, and the more boundaries are safe for them and very helpful for them. So we need to provide boundaries. They love having a boss. Why does mommy always say, Tati's coming, go clean up your room, and come, we're going to tell Tati. And Tati says, mommy's coming, you go to bed. And they love doing it and have such a nachas doing that. They love having a Tati and mommy excitement. They love having that framework. The older the child gets, that's not going to work anymore. So the question we're asking our children is we're not asking our children, we're not presenting with a challenge, do you want to enjoy life or not enjoy life? We're presenting them with, is the enjoyment going to be out of Gashmis or out of Ruchnis? They are appreciating through our behavior that the real pleasure and Geshmak is Ruchnis. What did the Hill Parasha say? If all the Baalei Taiva, if all the people that enjoy life would only appreciate the Geshmak of Elokus, they would drop every other Taiva. Because the Geshmak of Elokus is so much more. That's the message we want our kids to see. It is so much more Geshmak. Yeah, they'll realize there are challenges. A blat Gemara, as I say about this parent that had a child that didn't open up to Gemara. Gemara is very difficult. Didn't work. Took him to this Rosh Hashiva, to that Rosh Hashiva, and to this Rav, and to this Mashpia. Then she brought him to some, quote unquote, some gadol, whatever the right word is. And he said, okay, leave him with me. Father waited outside. So how long is the audience supposed to be? 10-minute audience. It's 45 minutes. The rabbi, still with the child, comes inside. They're in the middle of learning a blat Gemara. What? Very simple, what happened. He didn't lecture to him about why Gemara is so important in your life. He sat and said, Lama nefna Gemara. Now, when the great rabbi is learning with the Gemara, it's not like in school, you could just duck and hide. It's very uncomfortable. So he started learning Gemara. It was actually enjoyable. After half an hour, he's continuing. You just have to taste it. I want to share with you, I'm almost done, I want to share with you a Moiridi Gevart that I heard once from Rabbi Glukowski from Rehovot. And for me, it's extremely inspirational. There was a parent that came into the Frierdiker Rebbe about their child that went off the path. And the Frierdiker Rebbe said, did the mother go to the mikveh before the child was born? So the individual said, yes. So the Frierdiker Rebbe said, Ervet Tzidikumen, the child will come back. And then he continued and he said, there's a Mishnah, Meseches Mikvos. The Mishnah says, if you pay attention in davening, at the end of davening, somebody who has yartar, who's an oval, they say Mishnayos. And this is the Mishnah they finish off. Always say it out loud. Sorry for that. That was, for all those listening, that was the mic slipping off, and that happens sometimes in chinuch too. We have a mic, and we think we're talking to the kids, and for some reason the mic slips off, and we're continuing talking, they're not even listening. So a very important chinuch message is make sure that there's someone there on the other end of the mic. Yeah, back to the word that I was saying. The Frierdiker Rebbe said, it says in the Mishnah, Hitbul boy esamita. Afal pisher gled to Shoikas betita hava, to hide in Shemayim makadna. Let me tell the simple meaning and how the Frierdiker Rebbe explained this. If you take a bed, you need to put a bed into the mikveh. In those days, the laws of purity and impurity were kept even for dishes, utensils, beds. So you need to fit in a bed into the mikveh. In those days, the mikvehs were in caves and in other places of water. You're putting it into the mikveh, you're trying to get it in. Now the legs of the mikveh are going to go all the way down under the water into the cement and lime and then on the earth. So it's actually not in the water because it's really on the ground. Says the Mishnah, Hitba by Samita, you dip the mikveh, the bed into the mikveh. Even though the legs are totally immersed, betit of in this thick cement underneath the mikveh, tahir, the bed becomes pure. Because the water touched the bed first. You put the bed in, first it went into the water, and then it touched the cement, so it's kosher. Said the Friedrich Rebbe, said the pshat is like this. Hit bil samita, you dipped the bed. The bed is the mother. Bed is a reference to mother. Assuming it refers to intimacy, whatever it is, that's the mother. The mother went to the mikveh. Although the legs of the children, are so immersed in the deep cement, they're caught up in that cement, tahira, it's all pure. Shemayim mekadem, because way before the child was born, before that there was water. It all started with the water. If anybody falls in despair and starts thinking, "Oy, what hope is there?" They werden zurückkommen. The Friedrich Rebbe said, they will come back. Yeah, there's a letter of the Friedrich Rebbe where he says that for somehow Chassidish kids, they have issues that no other kids have. They have worms in their head. One of the dafkas, the Friedrich Rebbe says that there's 6 dafkas, and one of the dafkas says the Eibusha dafka make sure that we have challenges, and he dafka made sure the Chassidish kids have challenges also. All in that letter. There's a major, major campaign now about the 12 psukim going on, 12psukim.org, I think it is, or .com. One of the things in the 12 psukim is the Rebbe gave us a language how to educate our children. The Rebbe gave us 12, about the 12 steps? We have our own 12 steps. The difference is this one actually really works. We have a 12 steps program that 12 messages, impart those messages to yourself and to your children. V'hin Hashem nitzav that we quoted earlier, that Hashem is watching you, is one of them. V'hin Hashem nitzav, the Rebbe says, is not to instill fear, it's to instill happiness. You're always with Hashem. The Rebbe explained, V'hin Hashem nitzav means even more. Hashem is holding himself up upon you. You're holding up Hashem. V'hin Hashem nitzav alav. Hashem is standing upon you. You're holding him up. We have such a power. We could contribute so much to the Eibishter. There's a famous saying that the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. But when there's strong winds, the apple could fall very, very far. Our job as parents is to minimize the amount of winds that they have and make that tree a very, very strong tree. And if we want to provide an authentic chinuch to our kids, we need to give them much more than we want them to have. We often make the mistake that this is the level, that everybody has what they call chassidish and what they call chilled or fry or modern. And this is called, there's a word in Yiddish for it, fachenjakt. Familiar with that word, fachenjakt? Over the top. So everybody has their benchmark. This is called normal, this is called too modern, and this is called fachenjakt. Now for one family, this is normal. For the other family, no, that's already fachenjakt. So we pick our level of comfort that we're personally very comfortable with. We struggle with this and with that, so that's already, whatever we struggle is already becomes fachenjakt, right? And we have it all worked out. And now we think, naturally, what I think is normal, my kids are going to follow. And strangely, the kids are not following the course I charted out. If you want them to have so much Yiddishkeit, you need to give them more than after everything is deducted from all the influences around, from all the secular stuff around, from the street, from the environment, they'll be left with something. You can't give them what you want them to have because they might be left with much less than that. But more than that is, what happens if the kid comes home and he says, now, he is the fachenjakt one. So we have a tendency to start knocking it. That's ridiculous, that's extreme, that's spitz, so there's all these names for that, right? What are we doing to our child? He's already, first of all, if he's already excited about something, let him be excited, even if it's wrong. But it's on the right path. The Rebbe, there was, when the Sfarim returned, the Sfarim that was stolen from the Rebbe's library, when the Sfarim returned, on Beis Kislev, the Rebbe was very upset when he saw people, Bachrim, standing outside. The Rebbe said, they're wasting time, they're not learning. And whoever flew in for the Yom Tov, they heard the Sfarim going to come back, everybody took a flight right away back home that was so scared of the Rebbe's reaction. It was a very sharp reaction. There was a bacher that flew in, and his mother was close with the Rebbetzin, the Rebbe's wife, and she said, "My son, I feel so bad for my son. My son didn't know, and he came in. I know that I was very upset." She said, "You should be so proud of your son. He could be excited about other things." So he's excited about coming in for the Rebbe's Svarim. The Rebbe was upset, why Bachim wasting time where they're not learning? You're lucky your son is excited about that. I know the Rebbe's not happy with it. This is what the Rebbetzin said. So if the kid gets involved, becoming a bit too ultra chassidish, the Rebbe wrote a letter to not Lubavitch, a Litvish Rosh Yeshiva, who was complaining about Bachim davening a bit too long. And the Rebbe said, I understand the problem that you're talking about. They're chitzonim, they're not real, it's not authentic. They're going through the motions, they're acting as if they're very ultra holy. Don't tell them that. You're taking away something by the child which is for him associated with spirituality. Even though you believe it's not really authentic spirituality. And you might now go and undermine everything that the kid stands for. What you should do is work on making it more authentic. Talk to the children, they're davening along, how they daven along, how could they daven along better, give them ideas. Similarly, the Rebbe wrote to someone about, also not Lubavitcher Rosh Yeshiva, about having a beard. A parent, this was a parent, sorry, and he was upset that his kid is growing a beard. The Rebbe said, if you're taking that away from the child, for him, that's his Yiddishkeit. So the message you're giving is, Yiddishkeit is not so important. You have a different brand of Yiddishkeit, and for you, growing a beard is a mishagas. So, we have a child that's farbringing. Of course, it's ridiculous, farbringing all night. But if the child, when it comes to a chasna of a family member, of course we want him to be, it's an all-night event. But when it comes to farbringing, so again, what's the message that he's getting over there? Let's impart a message that Yiddishkeit and Chassidishkeit is important. If it's going a bit the wrong path, better to go the wrong path upward than the wrong path downward. The Eibusher should grant us all with Siyata Dishmaya. We are Chassidim of the Rebbe, we have a bracha that whatever we do will be matzliach. The Alter Rebbe gave a bracha and he said that when it comes to Chassidim, whatever they do, Yat Chassidim al Adyayin, Chassidim will always be on the top, will be successful. One of the 12 psukim is Yogaita umatzasa tamen. It's a message we can also impart in our kids very often. I tried Yogaita v'lo matzasa al tamen. But we can equally impart a message to ourselves too. Yogaita v'lo matzasa al tamen. Chinuch comes with yigiyah, with effort, but we know we will succeed. The Eibusher help me to raise a generation of children that will go and greet Mashiach. To paraphrase a quote that the Rebbe said once in the Yechidus, the children will go across to greet Mashiach, and Mashiach will say, these are the children, Rugi, Dulm, Shegidalti, these are the children I will raise. Emes Yiddish, Chassidish, and Nachas for all participants. I'm sure there's some questions.
Okay, yes. Yeah, it's good. Could you just borrow your mic for a moment?
Sure.
No, it's
Yeah.
okay, you hear me? Fine. So I'm going to ask two questions.
Sure.
Well, the first question is really a combination of many questions that came in. I'm just going to ask it all in one, and hopefully I'll get the message across. So you spoke earlier about the importance of Friday night and having family time and creating a family unit. And how would you answer the following question about davening barichas and having a Shabbos meal? What takes precedence? What's important? Is it important to have both Friday night, Shabbos day? There were a few questions on that topic.
Okay. But really, you see, a lot of these questions depends who's asking the question. Is the wife asking the question about the husband and davening barichas? Or is the husband asking the question? So the Rebbe actually specifically chose Friday night, not Shabbos day. Interesting. Shabbos day was always a day that's associated with davening barichas. The Rebbe chose Friday night, and here, yes, something is going to give. The davening will give. But not always is it this or that. There could be a davening barichas and being at home and being both. Being with the family Friday night by the Rebbe is a priority, so that cannot not happen. So maybe it'll happen a bit later because the father's davening a bit longer. That's a possibility. For that matter, even if I'm bringing Shabbos day, the Rebbe writes about davening barichas. The person writes that he has a family and he has children. So the Rebbe writes on the one hand, if davening barichas was important in Russia, it's even more important over here in America, and it's important for the family, for the children. And yet at the same time, the Rebbe writes, after you daven and you're sitting by Fabringen, The purpose of the Fabrengen is to bring it to the home. We mentioned that earlier. The Rebbe wrote a very sharp message, a letter to Kfar Chabad, that he heard a rumor that in Kfar Chabad there are people that Fabrengen all day in shul and never come home. The Rebbe says that defeats the purpose. The purpose is to take the Fabrengen and bring it home. The father's davening barichas. Where's that davening barichas impacting? How's it getting to the home? The Rebbe told Rebbe Nissen Nemanov that he should say Krishma Shalom Mitzvah and he should make a cheshbon nefesh. And who should he think about during this cheshbon nefesh? About his students. Davening barichas for the child, for the family, so it has to come to the family. Now you need to know how to balance things. I know of a particular shliach who never has a real proper davening because he's busy on shlichus. He invites guests, he invites dignitaries, politicians, you name it. Rosh Hashanah says Kodesh Lashem. Rosh Hashanah, no. Rosh Hashanah is a serious day. There's no guest. There's no nothing. So kids need to know when yeah and when ish, and parents need to know when yeah and ish, when yeah, when not.
Thank you. Another question that came in is, we speak about Yiras Shemayim, and how would you differentiate between Yiras Shemayim and a mitzvah? If it's something that you need to do, then it's a mitzvah. So, what is Yiras Shemayim, and how would you describe it, if possible?
Okay. So first of all, Yiras Shemayim is about the reason why I'm doing the mitzvah. So of course it's a mitzvah, you got to do it. But unfortunately, despite the fact that we're supposed to do the mitzvah, a lot of people know they're supposed to do the mitzvah and they don't particularly care. So Yiras Shemayim is the push for the mitzvah. But even when doing the mitzvah, it could be a mitzvah done with Yiras Shemayim, a mitzvah done without Yiras Shemayim. A mitzvah could be done because Machi Vasi Ve'asana, this is the mitzvah that I got to do, so I did my mitzvah and I'm going. Or there's a sense of connection, a sense of association. I once sat with someone, not a chassid, and he told me all this chassidus it's all nonsense. We have a Shulchan Aruch, we have a code of Jewish law, we know what we're supposed to be doing, and there's a list of actions. The Torah never speaks about feelings, it's all about actions. So I said, I'm not sure which Torah you're using. I said, do you say the Shema every day? He said, of course I say the Shema. What about the pasuk of V'ahavtas Hashem Elokecha b'chol avavcha b'chol nafshecha b'chol meidecha? How is that for feelings? So it's not just, the very first thing is Shema. It's not just enough that we're actually doing the actions. It has to be b'chol avavcha, with all your heart. If the person's heart is somewhere else, then really, in a sense, they're not really doing the mitzvah. Their faculties are doing the mitzvah. So it's, and Saf Kol Saf, they might stop doing the mitzvah altogether. So Yiras Shemayim is part of the package.
Okay. And this is our last question. And I'm sure this was going to come up, so I'm glad somebody asked it. When we you spoke about the last few things you spoke about was about if a child is very from, let him be from, and he'll be okay. So how
yeah.
Okay, how do you
Not exactly.
Okay. How do you help a child who is you say he's far from, but maybe he's OCD, maybe he's taking it to an extreme, and you're afraid that if he goes too far, he's going to drop everything. So what is the balance between what is normal behavior and abnormal behavior, or you just let it go and hope for the best?
Okay. So I want to correct a bit the comment that if a child is frivolous, let him do whatever he wants, because obviously it depends what, where, when. I'm talking about a general attitude. But you mentioned in the question OCD, and that's very, very important to talk about that. OCD is a medical condition. And as a medical condition, it needs to be dealt with medically. It's a problem and has to be dealt with and requires a professional. OCD has nothing to do with Yiddishkeit. It's actually ruins Yiddishkeit. It's actually not only, it's not Yiras Shemayim, it's the opposite of Yiras Shemayim. Yiras Shemayim is associated with Simcha. And the minute you see it's a stress, this is not the Eibishter. The Eibishter is not a stressful Eibishter. It's a different thing. It's not religion. It's not Torah and mitzvahs. I think that's very, very important to point out. And there's ways to tell if it's OCD or not. I'm not a professional, but I could tell them from the shilas the way I'm getting. So you get the shilah, you right away see this is an OCD question. It's not a genuine question. It could be the same exact question, but sometimes it masks as Yiras Shemayim when it's really coming from OCD. Preparation for mikveh is not supposed to be taking 3 hours, Rabbi Shalom. And it's a nightmare. I had someone in my office this week and says, I cry every time I go to the mikveh. I start shivering when I go to the mikveh. Mikveh is supposed to be the most exciting night. Yiras Shemayim is an exciting thing. I mean, we use the term Yira, but Yira is associated with bittul, not with yeshus, and OCD is often associated with yeshus, because I have to be perfect. Perfection, anxiety. So if it's a medical condition, it needs to be dealt with. How do we know if it's a medical condition? First of all, it's good to talk to a professional. But if it's crippling the person's life, if they're always stressed, and they're not having satisfaction, Torah mitzvahs, the side of Torah mitzvahs is simcha. So that's in terms of the specific comment about OCD. That really needs to be dealt with properly. In order for the kid to grow in his Yiras Shemayim, because he could do so much more than he's doing right now. Not more, I'm not talking about more b'kamas, more b'ichos. And being fully there. Right now he's not even there because whatever he's doing is it's never good enough. But in terms of, of course there needs to be a balance, and I'm not saying that every time a child chooses to do something which is totally beyond the pale, and he's starting to tell Tati and Mommy that what they're doing is not good enough also, and Mommy, you're not sneezing enough, all that kind of stuff. So such a kid has to be put into his place. But in terms of ourselves, we should deep down be happy, like the Rebbetzin told this person, that this is our struggle. Because the other challenge, again, not if it's a medical condition, the other challenge, the challenge of a child that's chas v'shalom off the path, and if it's off the path, it can lead to anything. It's not just he's one touchdown, because it's a slippery slope. But in terms, of course, there's rules, there's guidelines, there's boundaries, there's things that are acceptable, things that are not acceptable, and the kid is, if it's another derech and avodas Hashem, sometimes we need to cut our losses and say, Baruch Hashem, he's Hashem et Torah mitzvahs, he just chose a different path. But if it's beyond the pale and it's extreme and it's not healthy, of course.
Okay. All right. Yeshikayach, everybody. Thank you, Braun, for joining us. Thanks everyone for coming, and thanking the hundreds of parents that are online watching this. If you signed on late, don't worry. The whole recording will come out shortly, and you'll get a link to that as well. And the ikar is, may all our pulis be matzliach to have emisach sidisha nachas with children going the derech Hashem with true Yiras Shemayim. Yeshikayach and good Yom Tov.
Amen. Pleasure.
Thank you very much.